John Wayne movie and great raised.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'd like to open this Polk County Board of Commissioners. It's June 21st. Extra agenda is on the back table. Please join me for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All commissioners are present today and looking for approval of minutes from June 14th.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed unanimous. Department head update. District Attorney Aaron Felton.
I came bearing bullet points only because I think Ms. Pineda suggested that if I was going to use bullet points rather than simply doing the sort of free associating that I generally do when I speak. So I brought these out to the group. They're not comprehensive, but I think are suggesting, again, sort of discipline me and to assist the group because they are sort of fairly generic. And because I do want to hit a couple of points, but as always, I like to leave sufficient time for commissioners to ask questions about what may have what may interest them, and also what you may have been hearing from in the community in terms of the public safety issues, DA's office, anything like that. But I did want to say that I did want to start things out easy. By every time I come into work, I really am, I know it was some controversy in the exterior changes to the courthouse in terms of the hardscape, but I think it really looks great. I really, really do. I think it harkens back to some of the more historic photos that I've seen of when the courthouse was built, and I think it has really, really turned out nice. I hope I'm not creating controversy because I know there was some disagreement in terms when the plans were shown to the public, but I think it has turned out very, very sharp, and the building looks very, very splendid. So I've actually taken some photos, put them on our office's Facebook just to show members of the community how good it looks. And so in addition, when they make their trip to Helmut Park for the commemoration of that this year, they had to stop and just take a look at how nice the courthouse is. So I did want to make that sort of public address on that piece. But getting to
tell them all to come start looking at it at night, especially during the 4th of July.
Yes, I bet that will be incredibly impressive. Something that had they been here, 50 or 75 years ago to see it in its time would not have been as impressive because we do have the benefit of the lights and other things. So yeah, that will be great. I wanted to get into, because I know that there has been a lot of the Oregon Public Defense System funding issue. There has been a lot in the press about that, if people pay attention to that. Public defense services right now are, however, I'm just reporting now in a crisis, a funding crisis, in terms of the contracts, their ability to provide defense lawyers to persons who are accused of crimes. I'll tell you that is something that I, as an elected district attorney, my fellow elected district attorneys around the state are very aware of. In fact, the District Attorneys Association, we are part of a work group that the Chief Justice has put together with other state officials, with legislators. In fact, Representative Evans from this community chairs that commission with Senator Przanski from the Lane County area in terms of trying to find a solution to that, because it comes within the category of we are only as strong as are weakest in terms of those who are accused of crimes. So we have a great interest in having a strong, well-funded, well-supported defense bench. And so we are very supportive of that. I'll tell you, in talking to Judge Hill, he and the other judges, I don't speak for them, but they're concerned about people in this county finding enough defense attorneys for them. We're confident of the cases we put forward. My office is very confident when we accuse someone of a crime, the facts and the cases going forward. We don't ever want to trip going forward by someone saying, well, I didn't have a lawyer. I've been in jail for a long time. They don't have a defense lawyer. So we don't ever want that to be an issue. So we support funding for defense attorneys who are well-trained, well-rested, and ready to go, and at their best, because that means the case will be tried well from our perspective. So we have conversations about that. I know there's been a lot of press over in Marion County as to what's been going on there, but we have concerns here as well. And so I've been having conversations with Judge Hill about that. We have not seen it in our courts to the same degree they have in Marion County, but I think we may be getting close to levels where that may be happening. So we are monitoring that very, very closely to make sure that that doesn't happen. But I want to assure some of the suggestions that have been put in the media about, well, the DA's office should charge less as a solution. I want to assure you that will not happen. I will never be part of changing how my office charges crimes as part of a solution to deal with there not being enough defense attorneys for folks who are accused of crimes. That's a non-starter. I certainly will be and am part of finding an ongoing solution. That's why we have someone from the DA's Association there and doing that. So I just want you to know that I'm part of that. And as a member of the board of the DA's Association across the state, we're in regular conversations about that. So that's happening. Next bullet point is the Polk County DA's Association approach to misdemeanor and felony caseloads. That's a big bullet point just to say going forward, and it kind of does tie into current staffing issues. You know, right now we have openings that we have a hard time filling right now. We're not alone in that. Other offices, and we've talked about this, other offices around the state are in the same boat, attracting good, talented people. I actually had someone who was actually, a lateral applicant from another county, a lot of experience. Basically, we made it down to his final two, and actually didn't know I was in competition with the University of Oregon for their clinic. So not only are we in competition with other counties, it seems now the universities are hiring as well. So people are still looking at Polk County. I want to tell you, we're still an attractive place for people to look. It's just the competition is still tough right now for us. So it was sort of inspiring to me that we're still a place that people want to look at. But nonetheless, we still have vacancies, and our staffing, we're still down 3 lawyers. No matter how you cut it, we're still down 3 attorneys. And so that has made things tough for us. Had I not been with you this morning, I'd be doing the C4 docket right now. Mr. Wilson is doing that this morning, or would have been doing it. They had to shift it to 9:30. I'll be doing grand jury this afternoon. There's an attempted murder out of the casino that happened. I'll be handling that case this afternoon. By regular, I handle the C4 docket, and I do grand jury. I did grand jury all day last week. So we're thin. And I'm at the situation, if I for some reason have another deputy go somewhere else for another reason, we're going to be in a very tight situation. I don't mind sharing that with you. But I'm not alone in that. And we're having conversations again with my other electeds about how we deal with that. But we're still prosecuting misdemeanors. We're still prosecuting crimes such as trespass, shoplifts, things that I know are important to Polk County constituents, things that make people feel like they live in a safe place, things that I know are important to our law enforcement partners. We're very supportive of, when someone makes an arrest, brings them to the jail, that something happens. We're still going to figure out a way to do that so that there's accountability at all levels. And I bring up the fact that, yes, I'm obviously still prosecuting someone, an attempted murder in Grand Ronde, but at the same time, we're still doing all levels of offenses here in Polk County. So there's a sense of accountability. for that. We're not in a situation where once we get through the backlog, we're going to go back to prosecuting quality of life crimes. We have always done that. We've always found a way, and we're still going to find a way. We're still going to do everything we can to find a way to do alternative types of prosecutions as well. I'm talking about drug court and other things like that for people who qualify for that, who may benefit from that opportunity. We've always found a way, even back in the beginning when I took this job, when we were really, really on hard times. We always used a prosecutor, and maybe we shouldn't have been. Maybe that wasn't wise, but we believed in that here. And we're going to continue to fight to find that a way to do that. And we're going to continue to participate, Commissioner Gordon, in your homeless initiative. We're going to keep showing up and be part of that conversation because for all the reasons you and I've talked about offline, that's an important part of public safety and crime reduction, to figure out why folks are making tough choices that violate the law and how we can be part of that solution too. So even though times are tough in our office, I refuse not to be optimistic in terms of that it's going to improve, and we can't sort of check out of the solutions even though times are tough. And those are my three main bullet points. I wanted to have some time for miscellaneous and Q&A, but my miscellaneous was the shout out for the courthouse looking terrific. So I wanted to leave it to Q&A to hear about what's on your mind or what you may be hearing from folks in the community.
Are you currently 2 deputies down?
Three.
3, that's right. Okay, so, well, very much appreciate your efforts to continue service levels as they are. It's kind of...
Please tell my deputy DAs and my staff, they're the ones who are burning it. I'm working hard, but those guys are really working hard and committing to it. And I'm requiring them to take time off and arguing with them to take a day here and there, because that's what I can do. We can cover for them, but I'm insisting that they take time off. And we're just making it work. But please, when you see them, tell them that. Send them a note, whatever it takes, because they're the ones who are busted it. Thank you, sir.
One more question on your first bullet point. Is that funding that was approved recently, is that being given? I know they're trying to hire 36 defense attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
Is it prioritized to the counties that have the most indigent defendants, or do you know what their methodology is for distributing that?
I don't know the methodology because I hear that when I hear the report back or from Dan Primus, who's our elected DA who sits on that county. What I hear from Umatilla, Dan Primus is a DA in Umatilla County, which I appreciate having. Umatilla is a smaller county, even though they have many prisons there. Dan, he does have the perspective of a county closer to our size than some of the larger counties. I think they're still trying to work out those details. But what I do, so the short answer is I don't know. I'll try to work around that. But I think that what I consistently say is the reason that they're in the straits that they're in has been the history of not the best managerial practices around the finances. And I think that our legislative leadership there in that committee is not having much patience with that. So I think that hasn't been worked out in terms of how they're going to work it out. But I think that money will be released to them ultimately.
We don't see that as a huge reason for slowdowns in our processing cases.
Processing cases, how do you mean?
Well, if somebody doesn't have an attorney, I imagine there would be delays associated with that.
Well, they're going to be released. If they're incarcerated, ultimately what the courts have done is one, they've released people from custody, but as you've seen in Marion County, they're essentially drafting attorneys to from OPDS to take over for them. And you've seen sort of the back and forth in the newspaper about that. That's what the presiding judge has done over in Marion County. We haven't gotten to that yet, but you also see that the contracts that they're proposing to folks in other counties, they're just refusing to sign them for various reasons. But I think the negotiation has proceeded better in that now they're beginning, some of the things that they were objecting to have been removed from the contract. So I think they're starting to come online. So I think you will start seeing attorneys being available to people. So I have not seen in this county yet where our judges have started releasing people due to lack of attorneys. But I definitely do see judges in our county being concerned that they may not have attorneys available. And that's certainly been true in higher end misdemeanor cases. And they're concerned about conflicts, acing out available attorneys and having a hard time finding them. So it's sort of getting close to that line is the concern, but we haven't gotten there yet.
So with regard to the defense attorney's argument and those challenges, first and foremost, ethically, I'm always going to be challenged with if we're going to prioritize paying defense attorneys more than our prosecuting attorneys. Again, as a county, our job is to see to it that we uphold the law. And so our first priority should be that we're going to take care of those folks that we have to hire to do that job. And for the most part, the private sector has been taking care of the defense side. And so there clearly is an argument about how much what that value is and what they're getting paid. And I get that they're, as an association, they're going to continue to fight for, a more equitable pay. But it is a more of a private sector fight from my point of view. And it all boils down to a supply and demand issue. Mm-hmm. And this really is, again, about workforce pipeline. And our concern here has to be about how do we manage our needs for workforce pipeline challenges? What's our analysis of the problem, which I still haven't heard yet. Mm-hmm. And I keep asking this question now for the last 6 months, at least. What's happening to the profession of attorney? And this isn't just about defense attorneys, it's about attorneys across the board. And when we have less of them, they have more opportunity to select where they want to go and what kind of pay they get. And this work isn't necessarily their first priority, right? So the concern I always have, I'll keep asking over and over again, just to be an irritant to you and others that have to work this problem. What are the solutions? And not just throw more money at them, because that isn't necessarily what attracts them, at least not what keeps them long term. What are the solutions? Again, we all work in workforce challenges, and we rarely talk about this level of employment, this sector of employment. It just doesn't occur to a lot of people that, we have shortages in lawyers. We hear a lot about doctors and nurses and construction folks, but we don't hear a lot about lawyers, and it's a very serious problem. So I always want to keep asking, what's the analysis from your level? What are the solutions you're talking about? Because you got to get more people in the pipeline. And so throwing money at them today doesn't necessarily attract people back into the pipeline. And then how can our networks help? That's the other thing is that, again, I put a fair amount of my portfolio into workforce solutions, and we don't hear from you as a team, as an association generally. At least I've not seen any of that, and I'd be thrilled to hear from you all about what can we do as a workforce board regionally. What are the things that we can lean into more? How can we help? So I think that we have to keep working at this because this isn't going away soon.
Mm-hmm. You pose a complex question, which has obviously a complex answer that we've only yet begun to assess in a meaningful way. I have limited anecdotal answers from my own work, which is to talk to law students. And that's not enough of a sample. And done research based on publications that law students read, but they're national publications. And it's a series of answers between anecdotally, and they're not satisfied because on one hand, you have law students in this area saying they're more interested in exploring work on the defense side, yet you have people in this process saying we're not getting applicants on the defense side. So the answers don't check out, basically. And then you also have, and throwing money at something is a concept, but strategically, as you know, investing in salaries is a necessary piece at the right time. We're also looking, and from the DA's perspective, having the conversations I've had, is looking at things that aren't necessarily salary-based, but they more be retention-based things, which I know that necessarily the counties don't like hearing, but re-exploring the conversation of giving deputy DAs, putting them on the police and fire for PERS range as well, in terms of things which aren't immediate, but may have more of a long-term benefit for folks in looking at this profession. Those are conversations that have been discussed, looking at loan forgiveness that may be meaningful and not so challenging as it has been, because loan forgiveness has had a lot of issues with it for folks, but finding a way that maybe loan forgiveness could work for young people coming into this profession. So we're exploring some things besides simply raising salaries, because the salary question in this particular conversation, in terms of the OPDS issue, becomes sort of a moving target in a way, because they said, well, deputy DAs get paid, and that's only one conversation. And I always say, come to Polk County. I'm happy if you don't feel you're paid as well as a deputy DA. I'm happy to offer you as much as my deputy DAs are being paid, because I can assure you we're not paid as well as deputy DAs in Washington County or some other places like that. So it's a false proposition, and none of us are being paid as well, perhaps, as Department of Justice folks are. So it just depends. But I think there are some things that are currently being done, having conversations about, in terms of prosecution anyway, in terms of not just being pure salary based. And I always come back to, I know that this commission has, and since my tenure here, definitely increased salaries. And been willing to look at that in a strategic way. So.
Student loan forgiveness, that's my vote, or partial forgiveness for public service.
Yeah, and it's a great concept, but it's challenging in the sense we know that student loan forgiveness has been rife with issues for folks.
Targeted.
It has, yeah.
Partial, doesn't
Yeah.
have to be full.
Correct. So I guess I bring that up in saying, in just in response to Commissioner Polk's issue, it's not just about more and more upfront. It has to be in ways that also target long-term retention in way is how can we make this a long-term career. And that's why the police and fire is something that I think that has a lot of, I think, cachet, or should, for folks if they look at, your long-term investment in this career, even though I know that's more of a hit for counties. That is not great. But I do think it's fascinating because it's a phenomenon I've never seen. Certainly no one raised. When I came into this job, it was hard. This is one of the most lucrative and most competitive jobs to get out there. And now things have shifted, and that's fascinating.
Yeah, I guess where I keep coming back to is what's the analysis?
It's
Why is this happening? And I again, you and I keep hearing all kinds of anecdotes about why it's happening. I can't put my finger on it. I've been working in workforce solutions most of my adult life. And in most eras, you can pinpoint some specifics about why it's happening. But this is, I think, more of a cultural shift in how people prioritize careers and the things that they look for and why. What is happening? And again, it's only you folks that work in that, in justice that can really understand what's keeping folks from entering.
The cost of tuition and the debt load that the young people are truly now aware of. They don't want to accept that debt load.
Yeah.
They don't want to have $300,000 in debt.
You used to be guaranteed a job with a law degree. Now you need an MBA with that.
So they're adverse to the debt And so they choose pathways
Mhm.
that are much different. That's my opinion.
I think that's very true. And I think the cost of a law school education is just extraordinarily high, just extraordinarily high. And I don't want to comment on that, but really it is, it's a commitment. I still think the law school education in terms of the mental training that you get is terrific. And the social connections. I mean, I cherish my friends from law school and the training I got, but the debt load that people are taking on now compared to what I took on is extraordinary. And you have to think about that in this economy. Buying a home, if you know, sheesh. So anyway,
Here's the commitment in school also, that time frame it takes to get an income coming in.
mhm,
That's huge thing. In today's youth, I speak to my son and their kids, it's about quality of life. They don't want to have the job own them or their house own them. They want to be able to own their job and their home. There's a big difference, that freedom to come and go, and both of my boys say they would never, ever put the hours in I did to get where I'm at. And it's just a different mindset. It's amazing.
Will if they get hungry enough.
Yep, exactly.
well, I've taken half an hour.
So you mentioned drug court. How much participant do we have in that? And is that working real well with FACT and with the new FACT, and how's it participation?
I don't have the exact number, but I don't think it's a number. I still think it's something that I'm more philosophical about, that I think it's an opportunity that we should have for folks, because I've always believed that there should be alternative opportunities for certain folks, that traditional probation and, incarceration aren't the best solution for. So I think as a program, we should have it. And so we should support it. And that's why I've put a person in there, at the sacrifice of having a regular full-time deputy there. So that's why I'm supportive of it. So I think for that population, it needs to be on the spectrum for us.
I agree. I do like the alternative routes, rather than incarceration. But I still think we need to keep it on a local level.
Mhm.
But what do we need to do to get the numbers up, participation?
Yeah, and we're challenged by that. I mean, there are things that have happened with Measure 110 and other issues which have made it harder for us. And so we continue to aggressively look for folks that may be qualified for the program. But I also know that my deputy, who's in there, is also pretty aggressive about removing people. So you can have people removed from drug court too if they don't follow through. And so, but that's always been Polk County. I've always called it, even starting out, I said, drug court is different in Polk County because there are consequences if you don't follow through. And I still think that's true.
Some of those consequences are limited now.
Well, the nice thing we've always had is underlying everything we've done is having a jail with space. I know that with pandemic, that made it harder, but under regular operating conditions, we've always had the knowledge that you could go to jail if you didn't follow through. And that's the consequence, or you get booted from the program, or if you go into the program, if you go in with prison hanging over your head. So those are the types of consequences. And so that's what we maintain in doing that. So anyway, but I think having that option for the right group of people is something I want to continue to fight for on the spectrum. I keep using on the spectrum. What I refer to when I say on our spectrum, I should perhaps say a range of consequences for people, from probation all the way up through alternative, all the way to jail, up to prison for folks. So to me, that's a healthy accountability system locally.
Okay. Tell your team, thank you for their efforts, and hopefully we can find a spot.
We're working it. Thank you, Commissioner.
All City Thrives presentation, Lynn Bailey and AJ Foscoli. Welcome.
Chairman Morris, I do serve on the board of Fall City Thrive. Decision will necessarily be made today, but I need voting and deliberation.
Hi,
Morning.
how are you?
Good.
Great. So I have for you just a kind of an overview of Thrives, but to talk a little more in depth about the portion of Thrives that relates to the grant. Let's see. How do I advance?
Just-
There we go. Whoops. Can I go back? I'll get it. There we go. Okay, so Fall City Thrives is a pretty new nonprofit that was born out of the Rural Development Initiative process that Fall City went through a few years back. And before that, there was actually a group of people who had gotten together, recognized that Fall City needed a nonprofit 501c3 for a lot of reasons. We weren't able to apply for certain grants. We needed to develop partnerships with the school in the city and excuse me, and have a way to apply for grants and things that didn't exist at the time. We were kind of struggling along with that because the people involved are involved with everything. So it was kind of hard to nail it down, but we went through this RDI process. And at that time we had a rare volunteer for the city too, who helped us kind of get over the hump of the application for the nonprofit status and work through setting some vision and mission. And what we found through the RDI process was that the community wanted to focus on 4 things: downtown beautification and business development, housing, volunteerism, and health and wellness. So Fall City Thrives set its mission to empower the community of Fall City to live with dignity by working to address issues of housing, downtown revitalization, volunteerism, and personal health faced by the Fall City community. So that is kind of what drives everything that we do. And one of our first projects was that building that sits on Main Street and had been sitting vacant for a lot of years and was gifted to the city by the previous owner. The first thing we approached was that exterior, and just it was overgrown and kind of just dumpy looking, honestly. So we applied for a grant with the Oregon Community Foundation to put in what's referred to as a pocket park on the front area. So we made it a no water situation, put in a bike repair station, and it gets used, which is kind of awesome. We see the kids and bikers down there often using the bike repair station. There's a kiosk for community announcements, that kind of thing there as well. And then separately, sadly, we lost a pretty cherished community member, and people came together and donated to put in a bench in her memory that we used a semi-local artist to create out of Willamina. Then the next thing we did was start looking at the interior, and the city committed to fixing up the interior just to get the electrical up and going and make sure that it was like a livable space, a space that people could actually be in because it had been vacant for so long. And Fall City Thrives surveyed people, asked if people were interested in occupying space in there. Our vision is that it would be like a multi-use space that brought in lots of different types of business and providers. And right now, from that, we have a doula, a massage therapist, and an artist occupying the space. And what's coming up is Polk County Behavioral Health is going to use the space. Home from Community Action Agency is going to be doing some pop-ups on Wednesdays out front for our youth. And we've been having conversations with Salem Health, Pacific Source, the city, the school district, Polk County FCO, to explore either an option of a community health worker or a school-based health facility or a doctor in the clinic or something to provide medical. So it's brought a lot of people together to provide services for the community that they need and to occupy that space and bring it back to life. One of my dreams was to drive by in the evening and see lights on and people there, and now we do, which is pretty amazing after it sat vacant and overgrown for so long. And if we didn't partner up with the city, if Thrives couldn't work together with them, it couldn't probably have gotten done because neither organization has the capacity to do it by themselves. So Thrives now is involved in the manner of we provide a liaison who works with the tenants and helping keep the property up to snuff and communicating with AJ at the city about needs and issues that come up. We're constantly working to have conversations with other organizations or individuals that might want to come into the space. And then the city is the property owner and leaseor, right? So that's been kind of a big focus for Fall City Thrives. But we have other projects going on too. Another big one right now is the skate park project. The intention is to put a skate park in our river, our lower park, which is next to the river. Some students from the high school and middle school have been involved. The mayor is very involved in this project. And they're hoping to break ground in 2 years. So far, we have city approval. We have a team of community members put together, and the city has already approved that site for the skate park. What's left to do is increase community involvement and raise money. We already have partnerships and conversations going on with Annie Owen from the county. We've had conversations with Spirit Mountain Foundation. They're encouraging us to apply this coming November or January, I think, for a grant. We're doing lots of little fundraisers all the time, like bottle drop collections. Pancake feed is planned for the last day of Fall City Pride in August, and just working to get that up and going. We currently have about $5,000, which is a long way from the $70,000 that we need, but we have that. Some of that may come from grants like Spirit Mountain Foundation. Other big project that we work on annually is the Fall City Community Thanksgiving Dinner. We feed somewhere between 300 and 500 people annually. It's 100% donation driven. This was one of those things that Thrives, like we've centralized a lot of the efforts in the community and brought everything together. And this is one of those areas that had been kind of passed from volunteer to volunteer, but didn't have any, I don't know, like there was not some fidelity to the process. And now we have like a place that is centralized and core volunteers and a way to keep track of donations and things. And then something new that we worked on this year for the first time was the Happy Dance, which was May Mental Health Awareness Month. We got a grant from Oregon Community Foundation, but through something called Community 101, the high school leadership students were able to take applications and award the grants, which was a pretty cool process for students to be able to go through, and ended up being a really successful event with a lot of great partners, Thrives, Fall City Booster Club, the high school student leadership, Community Services Consortium, Polk County, FCO, Salem Health, West Valley. And then we had a lot of other people come out the day of the big event on the 21st and provide like mental health resources and just a lot of fun for the community. Other projects, we've also taken the Fall City Parent Group under our wing, Pride, Fall City Pride. We're working on trying to establish a scholarship fund. We partner with the high school for Camp 1922, which is a bridge camp for 8th graders becoming 9th graders, to provide a week-long activity week for those students to get to know their high school teachers and expectations, and do some STEAM activities. Summer music, food distribution, welcoming committee is in the works. And then another big focus is volunteer recruitment, tracking and honoring those volunteers as well. Okay, that's my quick version. Are there questions about any of this? Or about the grant? Craig, I know you have questions.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, he's been involved in it, so Jeremy should know. Well, not maybe quite as much, so I just want to defer in case he has questions, but I have been involved in these conversations for this grant. And the grant is Thrives is asking for $30,000. And all of this money would be used for facilities improvements, right? So, right, we're not hiring anybody, we're hiring
No.
contractors,
I
but
just want to make that space a workable space. We ran into some issues around with like heating and cooling and stuff like that, but they're like, the bathrooms are ancient and the sinks don't work and there's no hot water. And we need to make it a space that if we're going to continue to have these organizations come in and provide services to the community, that they can actually use their space.
That's what I was looking for.
yeah, so all of the $30,000 would be, well, more than half of it's for HVAC materials and installation. But there are plumbing fixtures, installation, and other accessories to go throughout the building, including a washer and dryer. So there's a lot of whole goods that are going in here that are important and essential. And so it took us a few months to work through the terminology here and the numbers and make certain that we had everything in place that would bring us to this level. And they have done a great job of seeing to it that they can accommodate the request with all of the things that need to happen. The one thing that's still short in our checklist is, and only because maybe Nicole hasn't seen an update on electrical permit. And so do you know whether or not there's anything happening with regard to electrical work and permitting?
From Northside Electric. So the last update that I had from Northside Electric was that they were behind on all of their invoices, and that's also probably connected to them coming in and asking for that permit. But I can follow up with them and make sure that they get that.
So I'm ready to go with this personally, but we've learned a hard lesson here about not asking this question specifically and making sure that we have recorded in your application that your permits have been applied for or granted when we're putting in money towards facilities and building improvement. So not a mistake that I'm interested in making again. So we want to make sure we check that box completely. So I would urge that if there are any kinds of permits required for that, that we get a copy of that, or it should be upstairs, right? I mean, it would be recorded upstairs. So we just get notification of that. So anyway, I'm personally in a place where I'm ready to say we need to move this forward. We have spent months working on this application. This is the presentation that puts it on the record. I think they've done a great job. They've been a great partner in the past, and I support everything Falls City Thrives is doing. And you guys have been a great team. So that's my motion.
So I just want to tell you guys did a great job bringing the community together and the collaboration happening out there. The change in the last 4 years, 3.5 years that I've been here in Falls City is amazing. I know Jeremy had a big part in that, but it's people like you two that's bringing everybody together to make it happen. So I just wanted to hear, because your presentation was great, but it didn't talk about what this money was going to do.
Yeah.
So And your statement just a moment ago
Yeah.
answered my question. Where's this $30,000 playing to what you're doing? And knowing it's going to infrastructure. So I also support this and I'll second this motion. But I do want to say before the money is given, we want to see the application for electrical. So we know that it's falling through, but great job. So do we need a vote? So I'll call for a vote for the Fall City presentation on the application for loan or grant. Aye. Aye.
I'm abstaining.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Great job.
Let me know if you have any other questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
Unlisted items.
I have one. So we've been working on internally conversations about what we need to do with 16 acres of property at the fairgrounds that we acquired in 2015. And it has been sitting there as EFU zoned with a rental agreement on it. And we use it every year for some overflow parking. But we see in the master plan for the fairgrounds that there is likely to be some kind of expansion that's going to happen there in the future. And we are not prepared for that kind of work to make anything happen because it's currently zoned EFU. Even though the county owns it and it's adjacent to the fairgrounds and intended for fairgrounds use, there are some steps we need to go through specific to a conditional use application for that property in order to prepare it for any kind of future vision. So we internally have had a conversation about how to make that happen, and with Austin's help and his team's help, have gotten an outline of what we need to do for a conditional use application. And I have started that work. I've actually prepared an application to move forward. And I'm here today to ask for your permission to be the representative for that conditional use application, to finish preparing it. And I think we're going to argue over who signs it. My preference is that Greg Hansen signs it as an agent for the county because it is county-owned property. We have a process we're going to go through. It's unlikely that the commissioners will see it again unless there's a protest, of course. But I want to be able to move this forward, and I'm ready to start moving it ahead today. And under Morgan's advice, I'm bringing it forward today to bring you up to speed on what's happening and answer any questions.
I'm in total support of this. I couldn't believe that when the county bought this, it wasn't zoned appropriately then for, why would we buy the property if we're not going to tie it within the county fairgrounds? So in entertainment alternatives to farming, but we can still utilize it for farming until that opportunity arises. So I'm in total support.
I agree. And I'd be curious to know what the conditional use process, what the results are. I imagine it's something we circulate in this application.
Yeah, it'll come from upstairs.
Yeah. But very curious to see what our options are. So I appreciate you taking the lead on this.
They're not vast.
I know.
It's not a lot line adjustment with regard to the zone. So that is the issue here, is we don't get to just lot line the park and recreation zone into EFU land.
Right.
And so the conditional use, I'm saying this for the record, the conditional use application does have a defined limit to what you can do. And there are ways, of course, to articulate what you think that you're doing within that defined limit, of course. But yes, it's not as vast as your current zoning. But it's necessary. We need to do it. It takes time. We need to make sure that it's in play and we've got it completed. And I always find it fascinating that, when we look back on things historically, the county has had properties and the things it's needed to do, and we wait till the 11th hour to do that. So I want to make certain that we're not in that spot. We've completed it.
Okay, go forth. Too good.
Thank you.
Any other non-listed items today? With that, we're adjourned.
Yep. You want to be?